Shalom, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Ancient Path Remnant. I hope you're doing well. I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope you're having a good week. We're going to talk a little bit about healing and how our Messiah healed the woman with the blood issue and what that entailed. I think we really need to understand healing in this time, how to, tap into that healing power that our Messiah has, and, what she did to actually receive that healing in herself. I think it's an important lesson. And also, who do we trust when we go for healing? Our Messiah, when he healed, it didn't come with a list of side effects. It had a healing power and it was complete. And so I want to take a look at the healing power that he had in that instance and how she was healed. But I also want to take a look at some things that I have, noticed about what's going on right now, the spiritual battle. And that seems to be the focus that I have right now, is that, this spiritual warfare, and that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spiritual forces of wickedness. They operate in that, the prince of the power of the air and the airwaves and, technology and different things. But also it affects us in many ways, and through the unclean spirits that are the offspring of the fallen watchers who, came down and they mated with human women, and they had half angelic beings, if you want to call it that, messengers, watchers, half watcher, half human. And these were the giants, and these are the demigods that were worshipped. And so when we look at this logo of the WHO, and I noticed something interesting about it, I was looking at it, and I have not heard anyone talk about the laurel wreath that's around it. And so we have the rod of Asclepius, and he was the demon god of healing in Pergamum. His dad was Apollo, and then his Asclepius's grandpa was Zeus. And so then we have, the serpent, the Asclepius serpent of, healing, and then we have the laurel wreath around it. And so I've not heard anyone talk about the laurel wreath, and I was really curious. I was thinking there's something that has to be here. What does that mean? And so let's take a look at what the laurel wreath means, the symbolism for that. So what I found interesting when I started looking into it, we call it the laurel wreath, but it's actually called the corona triumphalis. So I found that really interesting with what's been going on the last couple of years. So triumphant, corona triumphant, right? Or it's also called the Laurea Insignis or Insignis Corona Triumphalis. The one responsible for a great military victory could receive an award of the Corona Triumphalis, a crown of laurel or bay leaves. This triumph was the peak of military prestige and honor. The crown has its origins in the Roman military crowns. The laurel wreath comes from the triumphal wreath, Corona Triumphalis, worn on the head by distinguished generals during triumphs. Laurel was and still is a symbol of immortality, conquered by weapons and mind. I found that really interesting because if we look back at the symbol, it's claiming that victory conquered by weapons and mind. What are these weapons and what is the mind? What is it that they're doing to the mind? And we know the battlefield is in the mind. So they're already claiming victory over the earth through the rod of Asclepius, the demon of healing, and serpent knowledge of good and evil through healthcare, the health organization, and the laurel wreath as victory over it all. So, and then to find out that it's called the Corona Triumphalis. With what's been going on the last couple of years, it's highly suspect. In ancient Roman pantheon, Victoria, the goddess of victory, was always pictured holding a laurel wreath in her hands. That is why the association of this object with victory was so strong. Ancient Rome had a strong military and warrior culture, so the symbol was all the more important for that fact. The highest honor given to victors of war was the corona triumphalis, made out of laurel leaves. And today the symbol successfully preserves its original meaning. Besides sports medals and other honors, many printed certificates now feature the laurel wreath graphics, and in some colleges. Yes, so we see this as in colleges as well. They use this for the education system. So it's triumph over our minds, over our belief system, what we believe. And, we know that we're not supposed to, trust in the things of the world. And what we see with our physical eyes is actually, everything that we've learned through indoctrination and through, predictive programming our minds from an early age to learn their education system. And, they leave the Torah out of it, and they leave the instructions of our Creator, and there's no, scripture in school. And so we learn the knowledge of good and evil, and we take that, and then we go and we do the jobs that, are set up. And you can only have those positions of authority if you have those higher education, symbols that you've mastered that material and their knowledge, their craft. And so we do see that in universities. It's like the victory over our minds through education and indoctrination. But there's also more to that. And, here in Revelation 3:11, it says, "Because you have kept my command to persevere, I will also keep you from the hour of testing that is about to come upon the whole world to test those who dwell on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold fast to what you have, so that no one will take your crown." This, I've always said, this can mean your mind as well. Not only our eternal treasures, not only our eternal life, our eternal life in the kingdom, our eternal nefesh, our inner being, but our crown, our minds, taking our mind from Yahuwah and his instructions, and it takes us into the world of knowledge of good and evil. And that's what we've learned, and that's what it's showing victory over. And when we see the rod of Asclepius, then we also have to say that there's an assault on many levels. Let me finish reading this and we'll talk about that. "The one who overcomes, I will make a pillar in the temple of my Elohim, and he will never again leave it. Upon him I will write the name of my Elohim and the name of the city of my Elohim, the new Yerushalayim that comes down out of the Shamayim from my Elohim, and my new name." So, we see here that how the assault in the world, this spiritual battle, not of flesh and blood, but of principalities and spiritual forces of wickedness, there's an assault mentally, physically, and spiritually. The assault, or, the war that we're under, is what we believe, and what we think, what we put into our bodies, and our spirituality. So mental, physical, spiritual. And they've got it covered on every corner, on every side, everywhere you want to go. They've got it covered, in order to make sure that they get us from every angle. And that's why he says, "Come out of her, my people." And I don't know if you've ever thought about what that means. Come out of her, my people. Come out of what? What are we supposed to come out of? I mean, it's Messiah said that we would be in the world, but not of the world, and that he asked that the Father would protect us, and not take us out of the world, but protect us in it. Some people have been moved to different areas, and some people have been, are in areas that they've stayed in, where Yahuwah needs them to be in certain areas. And so, we just have to do the best we can and trust him, to protect us in situations that may arise. But I always see this, first and foremost as a spiritual battle that then plays out in the natural. And of course, we should always, prep in the natural, do everything we can. Everything we're able to do, we should do it. That just makes good sense. But ultimately, this is a spiritual battle that is actually, life is in the blood. And so we'll see that in our cells, every cell in our bodies has, this DNA material that, when we switch on the codes for life and health, then Yahuwah, with his Torah, when we understand his instructions, when we align ourselves with the word and spirit and truth, then we receive more healing. And so every cell in our bodies is like its own little tabernacle, and it has its own little nucleus and its own little cell wall and its own, ecosystem kind of within that cell. It's a whole thing. And we have lots and lots of cells. And so, it's really the battle is truly within our temple, within our bodies. Our body is the temple. And so the war that we see with our fleshly eyes going on is merely a result of a spiritual issue. And so that's what I want to try to help people understand, is that, in the natural, we're called to do things and make sure we're prepared for rainy days and things like that if we're able to, or trust him if we're not, and that's our emunah. But the spiritual battle he has me laser focused on, and especially healing. Especially the healing process of how our Messiah healed. So we are going to take a look at that account. Deuteronomy 7:15, and Yahuwah will remove from you all sickness. He will not lay upon you any of the terrible diseases you knew in Mitzrayim or Egypt, but he will inflict them on all who hate you. That's a big word. It's amazing to me how, healing can be such a powerful thing, but if we suppress our natural immunity, see, this is what he's showing me, how important our natural immunity is. And so victors of war, they proclaim this victor of war victory by this symbol that they're using for the WHO as victory and conquered, and of our minds and our bodies and through, health. And so let's take a look also at another symbol. It's called the Chron. I guess I'm saying it right. I hope I am. But the Chron, the symbol here, really looked suspicious to me in terms of, I've seen this symbol before. So let's take a look at what the Chron is. This symbol is supposed to be the symbol of our Savior's name. 2 Greek letters to signify the name of Christ. Well, one thing is he wasn't Greek. And so, and then the next part says the military symbol. This is a military symbol used by Constantine in hoc signo vinces. In this sign you shall conquer. Well, that was interesting to me, because in this sign you shall conquer. And this is the Chron. And then when I looked up what Chron means, is specific time, an appointed time of something, the perfect time for something to happen. And I couldn't help but think about, this, again, the stuff we've been going through. And an appointed time, a specific time for something to happen. And in this sign you shall conquer. And then I'm thinking of the sign of, X marks the sign, the spot where it's like, a mark, possibly. So this is the symbol for Christianity. And I couldn't help but think, when I said Cairo, I was thinking of Cairo, Egypt. And then come to find out that, the names for the IHS that we have here are the Egyptian monogram for Isis, Horus, and Seb. And those were the Egyptian gods that were worshipped. And, it's the 3. It's like, in Babylon, it was Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. And in Egypt, it was just different names. They were just, it's just different names for the same 3. And in Greece, or in Pergamum, where it was the seat of Satan, we found out, It was Zeus, and I believe it's Athena, and then there was Apollo. And so you'll notice that H in this IHS, H is for Horus, and that's Apollo. And then you have Isis, Horus, and Seb. And so then we have, again, the Chi-Rho, which is supposed to be the Christian symbol. It was adopted by the Roman Emperor Constantine. In Hebrew, the Chi-Rho equates to the Tav Resh. The Chi-Rho is used in Hermetic alchemical texts to denote time. Remember, I was mentioning how Kairos is a specific time, a time to do something, a perfect time. And I'm thinking, a time such as this, for we've got this symbol, the laurel wreath, the corona triumphalis, then we have you shall conquer in this sign. And then I noticed also that this sign looks, I said, I recognize this sign from somewhere. Well, it looks like the prescription sign. And come to find out, they are the same sign. They are from the same origin. They're just, its origins is from Egypt as well. And I found out that it also signifies the Eye of Horus, which is the Egyptian sign for, it was Apollo or Horus or Tammuz. Just wherever you are, it's just a different name repackaged, but it's the same thing. And you'll see that Eye of Horus on a lot of things like the dollar bill, and just it's used throughout the occult. And that's, it's interesting to me that it denotes alchemy. Alchemy is sorcery, witchcraft, enchantments, sorcery, witchcraft, enchantment. And then the RX symbol signifies the same thing. So the RX is actually the same as this Chi-Rho, and it signifies a specific time to do something, a perfect time to do something, and you shall conquer in this sign. So here we see with the prescription sign in the Latin, recipe, it's supposed to mean recipe and take. So provides the R is a symbol for RX used by pharmacists for centuries, while the slant across the R's leg is the sign of the Roman god Jupiter, so the patron of medicine. And I believe that Jupiter is is Zeus, and he is the father of Apollo, and so he's the god incarnate. So it was Nimrod, and then he incarnated into Tammuz, and so it's like Satan is incarnated into the sun, so he's worshipped as the sun, and that's why we have this Helios. And so we see Helios represented here on the CDC website, and he's got his sunburst hat on, or crown, and they did a whole write-up on this. So come to find out that yes, Helios was worshipped as the sun god, but actually now it's Apollo. So Apollo is the one worshipped as the sun god, so this definitely can be Apollo. And I'm going to bring more on that later. But then we see again the same kind of sunburst. It's this sunburst, this sun worship. The sun, the S-U-N. So Satan gets worshipped as the S-U-N through his son incarnate. And also we got taught the heliocentric model. We got taught that the sun is the center of everything, and so that's why people worship the sun, moon, stars, and the earth, and paganism, and it's all serpent or demon god worship. And so I found it interesting that this RX symbol for prescription is recognized worldwide, and it's the Latin word, like they think it's the Latin word for recipe, but in one of the books, I'll have to find what it is, the reference, but in a book it talks about that it is actually represents the eye of Horus, and that it's an invocation. So when you see this RX on prescriptions, it's actually a compound invoking Jupiter, a prayer for his aid to make the treatment effective. Sometimes in old medical manuscripts, the R's occurring in the text were crossed. And it's the book, it comes from the book Devils, Drugs, and Doctors, the story of the science of healing from the medicine man to doctors in 1929. So in that book, it says that this was an invocation. So, and we do know that the medical industry, that they take their oath to, Apollo, Asclepius, Hygeia, and Panacea. Well, interestingly, Hygeia and Panacea are daughters of Asclepius, and Hygeia comes, that's where we get the word hygiene. And then Panacea means a universal elixir. So I thought that was interesting as well. A universal elixir. And it just made me think about, again, what we've been going through. So the pieces kind of are filling in here. And so we see that I looked up, when they take an oath, the Hippocratic Oath, even if they don't say the names, that they take the vow to Apollo and Asclepius, Hygeia, and Panacea, it doesn't matter, because they learned the craft, they learned the knowledge in the institute, just like Hippocrates learned from the Asclepian institutes. And so he actually studied with Asclepius or at the institutes. And so he learned that methodology. And prior to Hippocrates, people knew that the supernatural or the spiritual realm was actually what caused issues in people. Like, people knew that the spiritual realm was a big percentage of their problems or situations. So it was a spiritual realm, and that's why they would offer offerings and sacrifices and things to these pagan gods, so to appease them and not have trouble with them. And so they tried to please them and offer their offerings and vows and things like that, and to get favors from them. And people are still worshiping in that way, and making vows to that darkness, and then receiving benefits from that kingdom. And so, but we're not to make a vow with anything on earth. We're not to make vows. And they make a vow in the medical industry to these, even if they don't say the name, like I said. And what they do say is, there's another portion that says, to hold him who taught me this art equally dear to me as their parents, to be a partner in life with them, and to fulfill the needs when required, to look upon the offspring as equals to their own siblings, and to teach them this art if they shall wish to learn it. So, and it continues on. So this oath is an oath that no one is supposed to take these kind of oaths. And we see this in the universities and things, with sororities and fraternities and the Greek parties that they have and stuff. But they take oaths. The secret societies take oaths. People taking oaths all over. And Yahuwah says, don't take an oath. And if you take an oath, take a vow by me, my name, and I expect you to uphold that vow and that oath with him alone only. We're not supposed to worship any other gods or mighty ones. So, in the education system, we learn so much of the knowledge of good and evil. And it doesn't mean there isn't some good things to glean from it. It's just if it's for, building Hashatan's kingdom, or is it building Yahuwah's kingdom? But we don't learn Torah, and that's been the problem from the beginning, is the instructions of our Creator have been null and void. And so within the religious system and within the medical system, they've completely taken out our Creator, and they've replaced it with other gods to worship by name changes and through pharmakia. And so the IHS in the monogram for Christianity does not stand for in his service like they would like you to believe. IHS in the exoteric means in his service, but in the esoteric, it's Isis, Horus, and Seb, the Egyptian Trinity. And, this is something that, it's hard for people to understand, but that Chi-Rho is an ancient symbol that originates in paganism, and we've got it here with the double serpents. This is the caduceus with the it's the hermetic wand. It's a sorcerer's wand, and we've got the invocation to Jupiter there, and and it's a symbol of the Eye of Horus, which is Apollo, and Jupiter, I believe, is Zeus. So RX has pre-messianic and quite idolatrous origins, but few have hinted at the Chi-Rho astrological healing connections in connection with the Great Serpent. And so the Chi-Rho, which originally predated Messiah and used to identify Christos, the Savior healing principle, may also be interpolated and offset. Yeah, it's just, here we have this bowl of Hygeia. So this is like the hygiene symbol. This is the, symbol of prescription, compounding, pharmacy. And like I said, Hygeia, with so much of the hygiene going on, when you have an antibiotic, when people use an antibiotic, it means anti-life. And I couldn't help but think about anti-life, antibiotic. And our Messiah came to give us this life and give it more abundantly. And he is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through him, and it's his blood. And I'm thinking, antibiotic, anti-life. Is it, once you kill off all the good bacteria within yourself, taking too many antibiotics, it kills the life, and then it kills both good and bad bacteria, and that's actually the life within us, and then it lets the fungus overgrow, so candida problems. And this is when people get, I would consider fungus to be like the unclean spirits, and that causes disease in the body. So unclean spirits can be considered fungus to me, in my opinion. And you can equate it with that. But once, you don't have the good bacteria keeping the bad in check and keeping the fungal stuff in check, then the body gets diseased. And the unclean spirits, I believe, have access when it's in that condition. So the pharmaceuticals actually open a door to those kinds of conditions. And with all the antibacterial sprays and things that have been going on, it leads to mutant strains of bacteria, harmful strains of bacteria. When you spray all this antibiotic and use all these antibiotic, hand washes and sprays and things like that, and it's killing the good life. It kills the good life. And I couldn't help but think that the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. So it just makes me think that all this antibiotic stuff can really harm our immunity. And so we need to learn how to have natural immunity. Build up natural immunity rather than relying on these things that suppress and harm and end up kind of, destroying our inner ecosystem. Because our body is a temple, right? So we don't want our light put out. We don't want destruction within our temple. We don't want it to be killed and stolen and destroyed within us, and that life within us. And the life, is the word of Yahuwah, our Mashiach, and the Ruach HaKodesh, the spirit, the Ruach of our Creator dwelling within our temple. Once that gets destroyed, then the light goes out, and it's, spiritual death, and oftentimes leads to physical death. So we see that chemistry comes from alchemy. It is the alchemists, and it comes from the Hermetic symbol of alchemy. And there's a whole lot about Hermetics that I want to talk about, but that's going to have to be another video because it can be a whole other video. But we see that chemistry this is a basic definition, is magic, sorcery, witchcraft, and enchantment. And without the Torah, because they've told us in religion that the Torah has been done away with. Well, one side says the Torah has been done away with. The other side says there's, the Messiah hasn't come yet. And it's all just like leading people into spiritual blindness. Actually, let me go back and tell you, I was looking up the word theology, and let me find this theology. Well, I'll come back to that. I can't actually find it right now. But so our Messiah says in Matthew 3:11, I immerse you with water for repentance, but after me comes one who is more powerful than I, whose sandals I am not worthy to carry. He will immerse you with the Ruach HaKodesh and with fire. His winnowing fork is in his hand, and he will clear his threshing floor, gathering his wheat into the barn and burning up the chaff with unquenchable fire. So without the Ruach HaKodesh and the word, that's that spiritual cleansing inside of us. That's that, refiner's fire that makes us worthy and cleanses us and, gets rid of all that chaff within us. And it says the wise shall understand, many shall be, washed clean, and the wise shall understand. And so that's what's happening. And, without the Torah, because they've said it's been done away with on the Christian side, then people are, they don't know that they shouldn't be dealing with, sorcery stuff. They don't realize that it's sorcery. And so in Exodus, 20, starting at verse 3, you shall have no mighty ones before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in the heavens above or the earth below, or in the waters beneath. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, Yahuwah, am a jealous Elohim, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on their children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing loving devotion to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. So the commandments are what keep us, in covenant with him, and we grow in the Torah through the Ruach by pressing into the word, and the Ruach guides us in how to keep it. So Leviticus 19:31, do not turn to mediums or spiritists. Do not seek them out to be defiled by them. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. Deuteronomy 18:9, when you enter the land which Yahuwah gives you, you shall not learn to imitate the detestable things of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, one who uses divination, one who practices witchcraft, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who casts a spell, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead. For whoever does these things is detestable to Yahuwah, and because of these detestable things, Yahuwah will drive them out before you. You shall be blameless before Yahuwah, your Elohim, for those nations which you shall dispossess. Listen to those who practice witchcraft and to diviners. But as for you, Yahuwah, your Elohim, has not allowed you to do so. Without the Torah, we wouldn't know this. We wouldn't know. Deuteronomy 18:10, there shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or daughter pass through the fire, or uses divination, or practices witchcraft or sorcery. Oh, I think sorry, I read the same one. All right. So outside, Revelation 22:15, outside are the dogs and the sorcerers and the immoral persons and the murderers and idolaters and everyone who loves and practices lying. And Revelation 21:8, but for the cowardly and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and immoral persons and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars, their part will be in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. You see, the rod of Asclepius and the caduceus, Hermes caduceus, they are sorcerers. They are demon gods that people worshipped for, healing, and they worshiped them. And should we not turn to our Creator? Our Messiah died for it. He died for us to be healed. So let's take a look at this account, actually, of the woman who touched his tzitzits. And let's talk about her healing and what true healing looks like compared to what we see today. We know that pharmaceuticals, it's pharmakia, it's sorcery, witchcraft, and a pharmacist is considered a druggist and a poisoner, which is what I've read. That's what it's considered. So, we have to take those things into account and see if that's what we should be doing. Always, pray to Yahuwah for wisdom on these things and decide if this is something we should do. But our Messiah died so that we could be set free from all these things and that we could be healed and made whole. By his stripes we are healed and made whole. So, let's look at her account really quickly. I don't want to make this too long, but let's look at it. And a man begged Yahushua earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come lay your hands on her so that she may be healed and live." And Yahushua went with him, and a great crowd kept following him and pressed him from all sides so as almost to suffocate him. And there was a woman who had had a flow of blood for 12 years, and who had endured much suffering under the hands of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but instead grew worse. A couple of things I want to point out is that she had suffered greatly under the hands of many physicians. These were the physicians of that day, were the enchanters, sorcerers, magicians, the magi. And she had spent all that she had, so this was costing her money. And Messiah heals freely. There's no money that needs to be spent for the Messiah's healing or for Yahuwah's healing. And she was no better, but instead grew worse. That's because, it opens doors to unclean spirits, and then, they're able to, the side effects, when you see the list of side effects, that is an open door. It opens doors. Our Messiah heals without side effects. She had heard the reports concerning Yahushua, and she came up behind him in the throng and touched his garment. For she kept saying, "If I only touch his garments, I shall be restored to health." And immediately her flow of blood was dried up at the source, and suddenly she felt her body that she was healed of her distressing ailment. That is so powerful. She was healed right then and there. His flow of anointing, just went right through, and she was touching his tzitzits, his tassels, his tzitzits, which, signify the covenant, the commandments of our Creator. Just touching that, touching his power that flowed from him, and the power of the covenant. And Yahushua recognized in himself that the power proceeding from him had gone forth, and turned around. He turned around immediately in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And the taught ones kept saying to him, "You see the crowd pressing hard around you from all sides, and you ask, 'Who touched me?'" Still he kept looking around to see her who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had been done for her, though alarmed and frightened and trembling, fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your emunah, that is your trust and confidence in me, springing from your emunah in Yahuwah, has restored you to health. Go in shalom and be continually healed and free from your distressing bodily disease." Wow! I mean, think about all she had been through, suffering through these physicians, these sorcerers, these demon physicians, demon gods who were trying to, taking her money, and it was all about the money. And she had spent everything she had and was no better. In fact, she was worse. So her belief in him was so great that just by touching that covenant, that unity, that restoration of the breach, the tzitzits that represent our commandments that we're supposed to look at and see that healing restoration power of being restored in right relationship with our Creator through our Messiah. And his anointing flowed right through the clothes, and she was able, because of her great belief. And that is the thing. Messiah always said, "Oh, ye of little faith, why do you doubt?" Why do we doubt the words of our Creator, and we trust people that say they speak disease over you, and they're the ones who they make a lot of money off of people being sick. And so why do we trust someone who has an interest in making money off of us being ill and speaking disease? Life and death is in the power of the tongue. So I'm just saying, I'm not telling anyone what to do in case of emergencies. It's the knowledge of good and evil, and it has its place in case of emergencies and things like that. But in terms of all this pharmakia and all this stuff, Messiah healed without any money being exchanged, without any side effects, no list of side effects, the only thing she needed to do was touch the covenant and return and turn away from what she had been doing, and her sins were forgiven and she was healed. It's so powerful, the tzitzits and the covenant and the unity and the restoration of the breach and the healing power. And I believe that we're coming into this time of truly we're going to understand this healing power, and Yahuwah wants to restore his people, and he'll restore the years the locust stole, and he'll redeem our lives from the pit and crown us with love and compassion and mercy. Let no one take our crown. Let no one take our crown. And our mind, our will, our emotions for our Creator. We have to persevere. I don't know if I already read Revelation 3:11. I probably did. It's been kind of long, but let's read it again because it's so important. I'm sure I already read it. Revelation 3:11. Because you have kept my command, persevere. I will also keep you from the hour of testing that is about to come upon the whole world to test those who dwell upon the earth. I am coming soon. Hold fast to what you have so that no one will take your crown. That's your mind, and it's also your eternal treasures, and it's also your inner being, your temple, your heart, and your nefesh for your Creator needs to be for Him. Trusting Him. The one who overcomes, I will make a pillar in the temple of my Elohim, and he will never again leave it. Upon him I will write the name of my Elohim, and the name of the city of my Elohim, the new Yerushalayim that comes down out of the Shamayim, and my new name. And Matthew 24:24, for false Christs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders that would deceive, if possible, even the very elect. See, I have told you in advance. We have to understand that we cannot go after any other gods or any other thing. They show their symbols, they show who they worship, they show what their plans are, and it's nefarious. Numbers 15:37. Yahuwah said to Moshe, speak to the people of Yasharel and tell them to make tassels or tzitzits on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to put a cord of blue on the tassel of each corner, and it shall be a tassel or tzitzit for you to look at and remember all the commandments of Yahuwah, to do them, not to follow after your own heart and your own eyes, which you are inclined to go after. So you shall remember and do all my commandments and be Kodesh to Yahuwah. I am Yahuwah who brought you out of the land of Mizraim to be your Elohim. I am your mighty one. And we know that Revelation 18:23, we keep hearing, and the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries, pharmakia, were all nations deceived. So in the religious systems, they either deny our Messiah or they lead us to a lawless Messiah. And none of it points us to the Torah. Our Mashiach points us to the Torah and the truth and gives us the Ruach HaKodesh and eternal life, and that's the light of life within us. And let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and honor and esteem your Father in the Shamayim. What's that light within us? That's the Word, and that's the Ruach dwelling within us and growing and producing good fruits. YHWH 8:19, when the people, instead of trusting Yahuwah, say to you, consult the mediums who try to talk to the dead, and the soothsayers who chirp and whisper and mutter, should not a people consult their Elohim? Should they consult the dead on behalf of the living? Direct those people to the law and to the testimony. If their teachings are not in accord with this word, it is because they have no dawn. They have no light. They don't have the light of the truth. So we have to really, really understand the healing of our Messiah. It is restoration of the breach, returning to the Torah in spirit and truth, and walking it out and being healed. That changes every cell and molecule of our beings. We actually do transform, and we can be restored and healed, and this anointing can flow like it did in our Messiah. And because he anoints us as high priest, he gives us the Ruach HaKodesh to walk in this I won't say victory because it was a goddess, but in triumph and overcoming. YHWH 53:1. Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of Yahuwah been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no stately form or majesty to attract us, no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. Like one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he took on our infirmities and carried our sorrows. Yet we considered him stricken by Yahuwah, struck down and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us shalom was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray, each one has turned to his own way, and Yahuwah has laid upon him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before his shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And who can recount his descendants? For he was cut off from the land of the living. He was stricken for the transgressions of my people. Though we live in the flesh, we do not wage war according to the flesh. The weapons of our warfare are not the weapons of the world. Instead, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We tear down arguments and every presumption set up against the knowledge, the wisdom of Yahuwah. And we take captive every thought and make it obedient to our Mashiach. Yes, brothers and sisters, this is the healing power that our Messiah had, that if we return and we can be restored, we can be healed, made whole. And sometimes we just need to understand what we need to change in our own lives to see that, we need to have a natural immunity. We need to eat healthy. We need to take care of ourselves. And I'll bring more about that in future videos and just go on a healing journey. As it's revealed to me. So I will stop this video now. It's been probably long enough, and I just pray for your healing. I pray for your restoration. I pray for all of us to be healed and made whole, have natural immunity, have healing power within us, and walk in the anointing of our Mashiach, and have those years restored that the locust stole. And so I pray you're doing well. Hang in there. Stay strong. Yahuwah is good. And this is the day Yahuwah has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Hallelujah. Catch you on the next one, Yah willing.